Hi, this is Hamilton Impressions. I'm Colleen Armstrong. Our guest today is Baden High School football coach Terry Malone. 34 years of coaching experience, an impressive record of 265 wins, 65 losses, and 8 ties. And now, after a 16-6 victory over Richfield Revere on November 23rd, a long-awaited Division III state championship. Congratulations and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Colleen. I've watched this show a number of times, and I've often wondered if I would ever be on it, so I finally made it, and I appreciate it.
Good. I think you'll enjoy it. It won't hurt a bit.
I hope not. This is new to me.
It's still a little new to us, too, but we're gradually getting used to it and having a good time doing it, too.
Well, you know, I like the programs you have here, and I've watched a number of the interviews on Impressions, and they're enjoyable.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Terry, the instant that the game ended with Richfield Revere and the fans began surging onto the field and hugging the players and yelling and screaming, at that very moment, what were you feeling?
Well, at first, you know, I didn't hardly believe that we had finally won, because as the game was closing down, we had an offensive drive going, and I was really anxious, concerned if we could keep that going, and we did. And then they had the ball, I think, about 46 seconds before the game ended, and even at that point I was still concerned because they could score a quick one and then onside kick. So as soon as the game ended, you know, I was like in a state of shock or numbness, and I think what brought me back is when all the former players that I had coached, there were so many of them present, they came out and started shaking hands, and then I kind of realized, you know, we had done it.
So there was never a moment, even near the end of the game, that you thought you had it in the bag?
No, even when there was 4 seconds left, I remember some of our players on the bench began to kind of celebrate, and, you know, I told them, you know, shut up, this isn't over yet, they can still get a score in. So, you know, just like Yogi Berra said once, it's not over till it's over.
I was just going to say that.
In a game like that, why, you know, I thought we got to go right down to the whistle blows.
Right, right. You told the reporters that you might sleep with the trophy that night. Did you actually do that?
No, I didn't. We brought it back on the bus, and as soon as we got back, we put it in on the counter in the main office. I didn't bring it home.
You also told the reporters that that victory was like getting a monkey off your back. What did you mean by that?
Well, you know, we had been in the playoffs. This was our 8th time, and we lost. We were runner-up twice. We lost for the state championship twice, and then 5 other times we were didn't get that far. So I know, you know, my wife, she would say to me every time we get in the playoffs, she'd say, well, you're going to go up there and lose again. So it was like, you know, having a monkey on your back when we finally won. Well, I just felt free, you know, we finally did it. We don't have to face that question, when are you ever going to win the state championship, because you've had the chance so many times. So no matter what happens now, we can say, you know, we won it once.
How many of those expectations of winning were in your mind, and how many do you think were external? To what degree was that mostly your own feeling?
Well, you know, every time we played, I felt we had a shot at it. I really thought we should have won in 1980. We played Benedictine, and I thought we had the better team. We were defeated that night 7-3, and that was really a heartbreaking loss. In 78, which was the first time we were in the playoffs and played for the championship, we played a team named Brookfield, and they had a tremendous team. They beat us 28-0, and a lot of people felt they were the best team in the state that year, in all the divisions. So, you know, I thought every time we played that we had a shot, but really only once did I think that, you know, we really should have won the game.
And how long does it take to overcome a disappointment like you had in both 78 and 80? It must descend on you like a cloud. How long does it take to lift?
Well, in 78, you know, when the game was over, I knew we had been beaten by a better team, and there just wasn't anything we could do about it. So, you know, that didn't take very long. Our kids went up, they gave it their best shot, but we didn't win. In 80, that was a disappointment. I remember during the basketball season, I'm the athletic director and I'm present at the home games, and I would go over to the games and I'd find myself drifting down into the room where we show the films, and I know that year 3 to 5 times I went over that game on the films during our basketball games. I went over the football game and just looking and say, you know, here's where we should have won it, and we shouldn't have done this. And so when you think you should have won, why, you know, it lasts a little longer.
So has this victory totally eclipsed that feeling, or do you still feel some of that now and then?
I still, feel we should have won in '80. This certainly helps out because having now won it once, it makes you feel a lot better, a lot more confident. But even now, I still look back and say, boy, this could have been our second time. But
Yeah.
of course, if it had been our second time, it wouldn't have been as good.
Right.
Nothing beats the first time.
Exactly. After the game was over, I understand the crowd started yelling your name, and the players, when they were interviewed, said, "We won it for Coach Malone, just like we promised." The one thing I've learned about you is that you seem like such a modest person. Do you find that kind of praise and that kind of accolade an uncomfortable thing?
Well, when they were shouting my name during the game, it might sound phony, but I didn't hear it because at the time, I say this now because I've seen it on TV, so I know what they were doing. But at the time, I was really concentrating on what play do I call next. We got to keep this drive going because I really thought that if they would stop us, we'd probably get beat. The momentum would shift, and so I was really totally concentrating on the game and into the game. I would say that the word anxious, if that has a meaning, I was anxious at that point, anxiety, and I really didn't hear them. After the game, I really appreciated before and after the players saying they wanted to win this for me. I appreciated that. I don't, I felt that that was all right, but I still wanted the focus to be more on the team and the school. I didn't want the focus to be on me, that this is the Baden football team that's winning the state championship for Baden High School. And I wanted to win it for all the fans. Over the years, we've had a lot of supporters, and I know they have been disappointed over us not ever winning this championship in football. And that's who I felt the happiest for, is especially all those former players that can now say, well, I played for a school that they won the state championship too. Kids that go to Moeller and Cape and Princeton, they can say that, but now our players can say that. So, and then the next day we had a get-together at school, and they were chanting the same thing, and what was going through my mind was, today they're chanting Terry, Terry, tomorrow they might be chanting Kill Terry, if the next time we lose a game. So those things change rapidly, so I don't put too much stock in that. I appreciate it, and I liked it, but I don't put a whole lot of stock in it.
The place in the sun is fleeting, in other words.
Right, in athletics it is.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. They say Broadway actors don't hear their own applause. I suppose there's a similarity there to what you were saying.
Well, I think, the players, I think that would be true of our players too, because, if you're really into the game, you really don't hear that sort of thing. So I could find that would be true.
Yeah. Let's talk about the players and pump these guys up a little and talk about some of their unique personal talents. And Tom Pate seems to be a good place to start because he has been lauded as an all-Butler County player now, hasn't he?
Right, and Tom was first-string All-State as a defensive back. He was probably our best all-around player, both offensively and on defense. He has a lot of abilities. As far as college go, I think most colleges are looking at him as a defensive back. Some look at him as maybe a wide receiver, but for us, he was a runner and was a wide receiver, a good receiver, and also probably the best defensive back that I've coached. He had all the abilities that a defensive back needs. He had really good hands. He was fast, smart kid, and also a very good tackler, very good open field tackler, which is really important because a lot of high school defensive backs, they're not that big, and they might have some skills, but a lot of times you have to tackle those big backs in the open field, and sometimes they don't want to do that. But Tom was a very aggressive player. With a little more size, he could have been a tremendous linebacker. So he was really a great player for us this year. He really did a tremendous job.
Who else do you consider outstanding?
We had a number of kids on our team that I thought were really outstanding players. Our fullback, Jason Flowers, who was really the type of fullback we need in our offense. We run the fullback a lot, primarily a running team. but then he could turn around on defense and really do a good job as a linebacker. He started 2 years as a linebacker. And then our quarterback, Pete Arno, Pete's the type of quarterback that I don't often get, or Division III schools don't often get. He's a tall kid and has a really strong arm, a cannon type arm. And you know, he can throw that 30-yard sideline pass. And at the same time, he's a pretty good runner and an aggressive kid, also a tough kid, which sometimes you don't find in quarterbacks. So Pete was a good, you know, we're going to miss him. That type of quarterback comes to our school about every 10 or 12 years. Another real good player, I think kid never got a lot of credit this year, was Todd Smith. Todd was our center and also a linebacker. And especially in the playoffs, he had a tremendous 4 games. He was a key player for us in the playoffs. Pardon me. In the Cape game, I think he might have performed the play that turned things around for us and gave us momentum the rest of the playoff games. We were losing 16-6 at the time, and they had the ball on about their 25-yard line. And they ran a play, and Todd shot into the backfield and really popped this kid and jarred the ball loose, and we recovered and went on to score. And after that, we were in charge of the game. I think that was a turnaround of that game. And then from then on, you know, we were kind of had the momentum all the rest of the 3 games. And he was really a good player. We're going to miss him too. He was one of our captains. We had some good linemen. We had Rob Luce, who was second-team All-State and a big tackle, 6'4" and 280, and we normally don't get that type of player.
That's a big high school kid. Yeah.
Right, at our level.
Yeah.
And we had Jason Allen, another big tackle, 6'4" and 265. We had Benny McKay, who was starred for us for 2 years and was from a tremendous family, gave me about 7 players over the years, and Benny was a good receiver, good hands, and also a good blocker. So we had a number of kids in our team, and I think were outstanding this year.
Anybody in particular who you saw a lot of growth and development over a 2-year period, a lot of change?
I think we had a couple of kids. One would be Matt Cheney, who was a junior and a halfback, and you could really see him develop offensively as the season progressed, both as a runner and a blocker. And then we had an end by the name of Nick George, who started on the reserves his junior year, and this year at the beginning of the season was not a starter, but improved so much that by mid-season we put him in and switched Jason Allen over the tackle, and Nick and Benny McKay turned out to be really 2 good ends for us this year. So we had a number of kids that really developed as the season progressed.
You're already looking forward to next year, aren't you?
I'm especially looking forward to next year because, you know, we will be the defending champs. We want to try to get back into the playoffs and have the chance to defend the title.
That's a whole new monkey, isn't it?
Right, right. But in addition to that, we will be entering the league for the first time next year. The GCL is reorganized, and we're going to be in one of the divisions with Roger Bacon and Purcell, Dayton Chaminade, Dayton Alder, and McNicholas, and I'm really looking forward to that because when you're in a league, you know, your kids have something to shoot for. They can always win a league championship, and if we can win in that league, I think we'd probably get enough points to be in the playoffs. So it's going to be a real challenge, real interesting, and a great opportunity for us because, you know, otherwise, with being independent and playing whatever teams we can get on our schedule, we have to hope that those teams win and that we've picked the right teams to play to put us into playoffs. But now, usually if you're in a league, a couple of teams are going to go 5-1 and 4-2, and those victories and points will be enough to put you in the playoffs. So I'm really looking forward to next year's season.
Yeah. This is a loaded question, but it has to be asked. Is this the most talented team you've ever coached?
Well, I don't want to hurt any of the players on this year's team, but
I don't think you can do that
I
now.
guess I have to be honest. I think the best team that I coached was the 1966 team. They didn't have playoffs then. We were undefeated, and we just had a lot of talent on that team. One of the members of that team, who was a good player for me, was the coach of the Big Blue, Hamilton High Big Blue, Ed Minery. And he was a very good player. He was good enough to get a college scholarship in football, and he went on to Morehead State and had a real fine career there. He was a lineman, so you don't have a chance to set many records or anything, but he was a good football player.
Could you ever predicted that he'd wind up a colleague of yours or not?
When Ed was in high school, I really didn't know what he was interested in, but knowing his personality, yes, I could see him as a coach. He had that type of personality and that type of enthusiasm for football and that type of drive. So I can understand why Ed's a coach. He would fit right in there.
Terry, there are people out there who'd love to hear more about the 1966 team and who was memorable and who you're still in touch with.
Well, on that team, some of the players that I remember, just off the top of my head, I could remember them all if I had time to think, but we had Ed Pate, who was really a good halfback, a small kid, but tremendous speed and movement, and he's around town, and his children have gone to Baden. One of them was real good in track, Tony Pate. As a matter of fact, he was a member of the state track team that we had, our 440 relay team. And then we had Tom Pate, was the other halfback on that team. That was Ed's brother, the father of our present Tom Pate. And he, of course, has an electric company in town. And then on that team we had Pete Becker, who was a fullback, and Pete had very bad tragedy. He was one of the boys who was killed in an airplane crash in the summer of 1967. It was our first graduating class. And then we had Ed, who was a lineman on that team. We had a big tackle that year by the name of Hudson, who was about 275, and at that time it was unheard of. Today, a lot of high schools have those kind of tackles, but then not many did, not even the big ones. So that was really a good team. I had Ed Baldwin, who went on to play at Michigan and is now an executive with Red Lobster over in the east somewhere. Jim Cheney, who went on to play at Xavier and presently is in town. His daughters go to Baden. So our Art Dudley, a center, who was a farmer and is still a farmer up in Oxford, and that was a good ball club.
Like most coaches, you can tell stories about almost any year and jump back and forth between years and even decades. And for once, I'm going to run by you some of the things that I've heard about you in the last couple days, and just to get your reaction.
You sure you can put this on TV?
I think we can, yeah. Let's see if you can handle this. This is a direct quote now, okay? Terry is an outstanding game coach because he knows the game of football so well. When I said, what kind of an outstanding coach is he, they emphasized the term game.
Well, I don't know who told you that. It's not some of the fans, because a lot of times up in the stands I don't hear that sort of comment. But, I spend time, the coaches, all of us, we study the tapes of our opponents, and I think that's how you make the correct decisions in the game, is that you have to know your opponent, and that means spending a lot of time studying the tapes of the teams we're going to play the week of the game. And I think, that enables a coach to be a so-called good game coach, whatever that quote there was.
I'm not going to tell you who said any of these. You'll have to guess. Maybe this will be a little easier. He makes certain that his players are in top physical condition. During the course of a game, his opponents often wear down. Terry's team doesn't.
Well, again, I don't know if I can take credit for that, because we have a natural resource at Baden which really aids us that I guess no other school really has, and that's that hill in the back. The hill, and the players would know what I mean by that. And we run that every day, and we run it a lot, and I really think that helps our team to be in better condition than some of the other teams that we play, because it's about a 70-yard uphill run, and it starts out very sharp, about 15 yards, a very sharp angle, and then it levels off, and it's tough on the kids, and we run that every day, and I think that really helps our conditioning.
So when they call it an uphill battle, they mean it literally, don't
Right,
they?
right.
Yeah. Okay.
I think you must be getting some of these quotes from our secretaries. I have them snowed at Baden. They kind of believe what I tell them.
Well, let's see what you say about this next one, if you think you haven't snowed. He has an excellent rapport with his students. He's a man's man, and they like that.
Well, you know, they're making me, I sound like Clint Eastwood here.
I wasn't sure how to take that one myself. I said,
but
he's not a chauvinist, is he? And they started laughing. I can't figure that out.
No, I don't know about that, you know, about being a man's man. I just try to do my job. And
I hear you bake bread at home.
Yep, I started that about 5 years ago. I couldn't even boil water. And I don't know, for some reason, about 5 years ago, I got this kick that I wanted to kind of learn how to cook at least something. And the first thing I think I started on was bread, and I have pretty good bread. Sometimes I'll make you a loaf and bring it over.
I would love that. That would be a very nice way to say thank you for all the publicity.
And I enjoy that too.
Well, I love homemade bread.
It's fun to cook, and then if it turns out halfway decent, that's really an achievement.
Well, I think it is too. I just don't do it as often as you do.
I don't do it that often, but it's fun.
Well, here's another one from the office at Baden. Here at Baden, we refer to Terry's wife as Saint Betty.
Well, I think any coach's wife is a saint because we do have long hours. You know, our work year is funny. 3 or 4 months, you're seldom home. And, you know, they have to do a lot of the things that you probably should be doing, like when we were in the playoffs, it took 4 weeks, and that was the rake leafing time if you wanted to get them out for the city to pick up. So, you know, there's things there that you can't do that you should be doing, and I guess that's why, you know, coaches' wives really are saints. All of them are.
Well, they have no choice but to adjust to it, don't you think? There's nothing they can do about it.
Right.
She's not going to change you at this late date.
Right. I guess you're right there.
Even as a student himself, Terry played football, basketball, and baseball. He was a natural athlete. Do you think there is any such thing?
As a natural athlete? Oh, yeah. I think all good athletes are born with their talent. You know, athlete can only improve so far to a certain degree. The rest of it, you know, he's born with. It's natural ability. That's what determines the good ones from the average players.
And do you qualify, do you think, as a natural athlete? Did
Me
it come easily to
personally?
you? Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that. I had to struggle. I can remember when I was little, we would go up and when I first started playing baseball, I couldn't catch a ball. But I had a ball diamond behind my house, so that's all we did was go back there, and you know, I learned how to catch him.
I think a lot of people dismiss hard work as talent. They call it talent when it really is hard work, don't you?
Well, again, I think if an athlete has talent and then really works hard, then they become the great athlete. But I still think, you know, to be really a good athlete, you got to have some innate ability. It's hard for kids just, I think, you know, a kid can, especially in football, work hard and become a good player, but I don't know if that's true in all the sports.
This is another loaded question. Have you ever seen a kid on any team you've ever coached who had a lot of natural ability and just didn't use it?
Yeah, we've had a lot of kids. I think every coach has in every high school. They might come out their freshman year and they have a lot of ability, but they don't have that drive or they don't have that interest, and they drift away, and that's very disappointing for a coach, because you see kids that have the talent and what they could do with it if they'd apply themselves, but for some reason, you know, they don't have the goals and they don't have the motivation to do it. And even though a coach might try as hard as he can, it's a big disappointment to see a kid like that wasted, you know, go down the drain.
Do they ever come back years later and say, now I understand what you were trying to tell me?
I've had a couple kids who have come back years later and say, you know, I wish I would have stuck with it. I wish I would have played. I wish I hadn't quit. But normally, you know, you don't run into too many kids after they leave high school today, because our society is so mobile, you know, they move on to different places. I think the statistic is about 50% of the kids that graduate from high school never live in that town. They move on, so you don't see too many today.
Although Hamilton has more than most places do, I think. They tend to retain their people a little better than many communities do.
You know, I would agree with that. I think so, too.
Yeah. Here's one last quote. The state championship, I think he'll be a different person after this.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm not planning on changing any.
You can take that one however you want, see.
It is, I think, probably with that, you know, it's kind of relaxing. There's a permanent relaxation to knowing the fact that we have won it once. But as far as, you know, my job or what I plan to do, why, I'm going to try to remain the same. We're going to push hard on the weights this winter, and you know, I have my schoolwork to do and preparation for that, so I don't think I'm going to be changing that much.
You've had a lot of opportunities to go other places, plenty of offers, I'm sure, some of them possibly even a little more lucrative than where you are. Has it been difficult to turn down? A sacrifice, a hardship?
Well, you know, I've considered those things over the years. I think there's a couple of factors. One, if you're a coach, it's an insecure job, and I feel pretty secure at Baden. And if I go somewhere else, you never know what's going to happen. How many leave and go up the ladder, but before you know it, they don't have a job. So I think that's been the main thing.
Yeah. Besides security, anything else?
Well, I like Hamilton. You know, I'm from Hamilton, and this is where my family and friends are. So I wouldn't relish leaving Hamilton. You know, I like the town, and you get used to certain pattern of life, I guess, and that's what's happened to me.
What about plans for retirement? That's a loaded question, too. Any thoughts on that, now that you finally got the state championship?
You know, in a parochial school, we don't have 30 years and out. We're not in that state retirement plan, so we do have a retirement, but it's tied in with Social Security. So, you know, I have to go till, I don't want to put it that way, I have to go. I enjoy what I'm doing, and but I do have to go to that time, that age. So I'm really not planning on retiring. Actually, winning this state championship has kind of whetted my appetite. I can't wait till we get back in the fray and try it again.
I've made a few comments about having your Friday nights free now, and you don't really regard it like that, do you?
Well, I'm also athletic director, so we have a lot of basketball games on Friday night, in which I have to be at. But other than that, you know, there will be a little more free time than during football. One
last thing, I've heard coaches say this a lot, and I know you want to respond to this. Coaching is the best classroom we have. Coaching is teaching.
Well, I think that's the main value out of all athletics is I think the kids have opportunities in sports that they don't have in the classroom. You know, take just one sport, football. Football's a difficult sport. It's demanding physically and also mentally. The kids have to learn certain things, their assignments and their responsibilities, and you know, that's the same as in a classroom. So only it's more real life. You know, on Friday night, the players and us coaches, we go out, and what we have taught the kids during the week, we have to put on the line Friday night in front of the public. The ordinary teacher doesn't have to do that.
Right.
He can slip by, but we have to go out there and show them what we've been doing. So I think it does apply. You know, athletics, there's a lot of real life to it.
But it is the toughest evaluation anybody can undergo in front of literally thousands of people.
Right. You know, every week it's a new evaluation, and you're judged by it every week.
You're only as good as your last game.
Right.
But your last game was a state championship, so you
right.
don't have to worry right now.
And that was a tremendous experience, so we can live high on the hog for about a year.
Well, I hope you do. Thank you very much for being here. This has been terrific. I've really learned a lot. I hope you've enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to watch myself on TV.
And thank you for joining us on Hamilton Impressions with Terry Malone.